So I'm near enough to the screen here, yeah. Okay. Hi everyone, and welcome to another session of busking from home. And a special welcome to Matthew and Jolene in Canada. Today I'm revisiting some of the work of Bob Dylan. I've got a lot of empathy with Bob Dylan. We are the same age. We were both born in March 1941. In our early music, we shared the same interests. And in the period 1959 to 1961, we both explored the world of Woody Guthrie and Leadbelly. Much of this is evident in Dylan's first album, issued in 1962, under the title Bob Dylan. And so, in 1960, when I began playing in public, and Dylan was making a name for himself in the folk clubs of New York, we were both singing much the same material, such as Woody Guthrie's This Land Is Your Land and the traditional Man of Constant Sorrow. So here they both are. This land is your land, this land is my land. I'll start that one again. So this land is your land. I first heard this around about 1959, 1960, and it was very popular in England, even though it refers, of course, to the USA. It's a kind of an ecological hymn. This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream water. This land was made for you and me. As I was walking that ribbon of highway, I saw above me that endless skyway. I saw below me that golden valley. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream water. This land was made for you and me. I roamed and rambled and followed my footsteps to the sparkling sands of her diamond desert, and all around me a voice was sounding. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream water. This land was made for you and me. This land was made for you and me. The second song, Man of Constant Sorrow, again, I first heard back in about 59, 60, and then it turned up on Dylan's first album, Bob Dylan. There are many variations on this song. It's an old traditional folk song. And I suppose it was made most famous by the performance of the Stanley Brothers in the movie Brother, Where Art Thou, starring George Clooney. There are many versions of the song, and this is mine. I am a man of constant sorrow. I've seen trouble all my days. I'm going back to Colorado, where I was born and partly raised. All through this world I'm bound to ramble, through sun and wind and driving rain. I'm bound to ride that northern railway. Perhaps I'll take the very next train. I always thought that I'd see trouble. Now I know it's common run. I'll hang my head in some dark hollow and think upon the deeds I've done. I am a man of constant sorrow. I've seen trouble all my days. I'm going back to Colorado, where I was born and partly raised. So there's a couple of Dylan's early songs and a couple of my early songs. But there's always more to Dylan than simply being a folk historian. And of course, he was among the first singer-songwriters. This came out clearly in 1963 with his second album, The Freewheeling Bob Dylan. The original songs on this album made him the voice of a generation of young people, none more so than Blowing in the Wind. Apologies for the absence of a harmonica. I never did manage to learn that instrument, but here we go. How many roads must a man walk down before you call him a man? And how many seas must a white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand? And how many times must a cannonball fly before they're forever banned? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. How many times must a man look up before he can see the sky? And how many ears must one man have before he can hear people cry? And how many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. How many years can a mountain exist before it's washed to the sea? And how many years can some people exist before they're allowed to be free? And how many times can a man turn his head and pretend he just doesn't see? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. So there you go, some early songs from Bob Dylan. Dylan, of course, never stayed the same for long, and his career is one of constant reinvention. In 1965, he went electric, and one expression of this was the album Highway 61 Revisited. The title track of this album shows Dylan at his lyrical and musical best as he explores the Deep South and its obsession with the Freedom Road to Chicago. Well, God told Abraham, kill me a son. Abe says, man, you must be putting me on. God says no. Abe says what? God says you can do what you want, Abe, but the next time you see me coming, you better run. Abe says, where you want this killing done? God says, out on Highway 61. Now Georgia Sammy had a bloody nose. Welfare department wouldn't give him no clothes. He asked for Howard, where can I go? Howard says, well, I think I know. George says, tell me quick, I gotta run. Old Howard just pointed with his gun that way down to Highway 61. Now Mac the Finger told Louis the King, I got 40 red, white, and blue shoestrings, 1,000 phones that just won't ring. Tell me how I can get rid of these things. Louis said, let me think for a minute, son. Then he said, I think it can be done. Take it all down to Highway 61. Now the fifth daughter on the 12th night told the first father things ain't right. My complexion, she said, is much too white. He said, come in here, stand in the light. He said, you're right. Better tell the second mother this has been done. But the second mother and seventh son were both out on Highway 61. Now the roving gambler, he was very bored, trying to create a next world war. Found a promoter, nearly fell off the floor, said, I never done this thing before, but yes, I think it can be easily done. We'll put some bleachers out in the sun and have it on Highway 61. We'll put some bleachers out in the sun and have it on Highway 61. Highway 61. So there's Dylan going all electric, but typically in 1967, he returned to acoustic mode with the gravely austere lyrics of John Wesley Harding. The standout track on this album is All Along the Watchtower, and it's still one of Dylan's favorites, frequently featured in his never-ending concert tour. There must be some way out of here, said the joker to the thief. There's too much confusion, can't get no relief. Businessmen, they drink my wine, plowboy burn my roots. None of them is on the line or knows what it is worth. All along the watchtower, all along the watchtower, no need to get excited, the thief he kindly spoke. There are many here among us who fear life is but a joke. You and I, we've been through that. This is not our fate. Let us not talk falsely now. The hour is getting late. All along the watchtower, all along the watchtower, all along the watchtower, princes kept the view, while all the women came and went, barefoot servants too. Outside in the distance, a wild cat did growl. Two riders were approaching, the wind began to howl. All along the watchtower, all along the watchtower, all along the watchtower. All along the watchtower. 30 years later, in 1997, Dylan released his Time Out of Mind album, and here is the haunting track, Not Dark Yet, from that album. It sees Dylan still creative, but now coming to terms with his own mortality. Aren't we all? Here we go. Not Dark Yet. Shadows are falling, I've been here all day, too hard to sleep, time is running away, feels like my soul has turned into steel. Well, I've still got the scars that the sun wouldn't heal, and there's not even room to be anywhere. Well, it's not dark yet, but it's getting there. Well, it's not dark yet, but it's getting there. Getting there. Well, my sense of humanity has gone down the drain. Behind everything, there's some kind of pain. Well, she wrote me a letter, wrote it so kind. Well, she put down in writing what was on her mind. But I just don't see why I should really care. Well, it's not dark yet, but it's getting there. Well, it's not dark yet, but it's getting there. Getting there. Well, I've been to London, I've been to Gay Paris, I followed the river, I reached the sea. I've been down on the bottom of a world full of lies. I'm not looking for nothing in anybody else's eyes. Sometimes my burden is more than I can bear. Well, it's not dark yet, but it's getting there. Well, it's not dark yet, but it's getting there. Getting there. I was born here, I'll die here, against my will. Feels like I'm moving, but I'm standing still. Every nerve in my body is vacant and numb. Can't even remember what it was I came here to get away from. And I don't even hear the murmur of a prayer. Well, it's not dark yet, but it's getting there. Well, it's not dark yet, but it's getting there. Getting there. Getting there. Getting there. So there you go. Dylan, 1997, Trouble Out of Mind and Not Dark Yet. And the guy is still playing on his never-ending tour. A model for us all, I guess. Well, I hope you enjoyed that reprise of Bob Dylan. Next week, I'm focusing on a very different guy and someone much less familiar, an American singer called Jim Croce. He was very big for about 10 minutes in the 1970s when he produced a number of wonderful songs. Sadly, his musical career was cut short by an air crash which killed him in September of 1973. But as I say, he's left behind some beautiful songs, so hope you'll catch me then for Jim Croce. Bye to all my friends out there, especially Matthew and Jolene and all our friends in Canada. And of course, as always, for Fiona in Italy. Bye-bye. You wake up early in the morning. And you sing damn thing. Do 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 do. I am a man. Sorrow. I've seen trouble all around you. I know and partly raised. I always thought that I'd seen trouble. Okay, let's see how it goes.